I think we're about 50 participants. As the others join, we can let them in. This has also been recorded, so we definitely will share this with all the participants who haven't quite joined yet or missed the beginning. But there's quite a lot of content to go through, so I don't want to waste anyone's time. So without any further ado, let's go and introduce who's on the panel today. I'm very excited about this topic. It's something I've been looking forward to doing since I joined AWCape myself a year ago or so. And part of the panel that we've got today, we've got Ansel Dry. He's joining us from Sage. He's a national sales manager for HR and Payroll. Very experienced colleague of ours from Sage who has seen hundreds, if not thousands, I don't want to show his age, but of implementations through Sage and definitely understands the nuances of HR and Payroll across multiple businesses. Also, we got very lucky to join us today is Nicola Leibrandt. She is our specialist in HR, and in particular performance management and implementation of those systems. She's going to be doing a demo for us later on to actually how you implement a performance-based remuneration system using the latest technology. So those are the two guests, and then I think the most important person today is someone who's got a lot of experience. He's quite a private man. I see him as a mentor in my own life, is Henry Hatting. Henry, why don't you come on mute and off mute and tell us a little bit about yourself so people know who you are and where you come from and why what you have to say is important.
Good morning. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, everybody. It's good to see such a large crowd. And in the previous time, we had a similar webinar with the same topic. It was about 4 years ago, 2018. And we had 43 delegates attended. It was a seminar, of course. Now we call them webinars. So it's nice to see so many people. Welcome all. Yeah, I think this is a topic that's close to me, being an industrial engineer. My training was initially through factories. I had a bursary from Chrysler, South Africa, way back in the 70s. And then I joined AZ Electric, a Swedish company, ABB today. And they sent me to Sweden to study merit rating for hourly paid employees. So I was, as a young engineer, I implemented performance-based remuneration from those days. And it was quite a daunting exercise. I had to stand in front of the people and discuss. It was difficult those ways, but over the years, I think we found that this topic is so important. So I will share with you also some of the slides. But we learned that labor productivity is one of the most important aspects of running an efficient business. So we'll share that with you in a minute, and Jeff will do that for us. Thank you, Jeff.
Henry, and I think you're quite a humble man, and I think, you know, one of the things that I've learned from you over the last year and a half is, you know, you're a very successful entrepreneur and you've turned many businesses around and made them highly successful, but it hasn't always been that way. And I think, you know, that's what a lot of people miss in terms of that journey that entrepreneurs going through, is that there's a lot more lows sometimes than the highs that they see at the end of the day. And I think that's part of where we are as an economy. There's a lot of businesses out there struggling to understand how to make a success. COVID-19 has had a massive impact on those businesses. But in particular, I think, you know, this remote working, you know, where are we from a motivation perspective with our employees? And how do we actually remunerate them fairly for what they're doing? And I think that's what we're going to address today, because, you know, a lot of those questions that are sitting out there is, what is the motivational value of a fixed salary? So what motivates you to work if you're going to be paid the same amount every month? And if your earnings is only linked to how much your labor union is putting pressure on your employer, how much motivation do you have there? I mean, take an example, what you see in the press often is how much the strikes around trying to get an 8% increase when the employers can only afford 4%. So that's the kind of sort of situation we're living in South Africa. But we really, as AWCape group of companies, we are really believe in what we're saying here today, and we believe it's something that can turn around businesses. From a personal perspective, as AWCape's MD, we've had a phenomenal run of 40% growth year on year, and we believe it's a lot to do with the way that we run our business and the model that we use to remunerate our employees. So Henry, maybe you just want to set a scene of where we are in today's world, and what you've seen relative to where you've come from.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I've consulted with Mike Schuessler. Many of you should know Mike is a well-known economist. He's compiled a graph recently, and that graph shows us that industrial employment, that's number of people employed in the manufacturing, is the same now as it was in 1969. You can see the graph there, starting from 1970, 1969, going up to a peak in the 1990s, and then going down to 2021. Similar to so I was a matric in 69. So if I think now, there was growth, many more people I think in South Africa. We've reached a peak and went down. We're at the same level now than I was in matric. It's unbelievable. It's very, very bad. It's a very, very bad situation. So the employment from 1990, when it peaked, has declined by 40% since 1990. Also noteworthy is other African economies have employed more people in 20 years since that time. So other African economies did grow. They grew the manufacturing sector a lot. So this numbers that we have here, the graph, does not include what happened or the impact or the numbers since we had the riots and the looting. So it may be even worse, but it's not a good graph. It's not a good number. I think if you look at that, what I also know is I've been around in businesses as a turnaround specialist for a couple of years. And this figure is very familiar. If you're in a business that's run down, they're loss making, then the graph is also going down. The labor wasn't productive. You knew that from a survey, and so this is a very familiar number. But I know it's also possible to turn around, and I think it's looking at graph. The trend could be reversed if we. And I would like you to, at the end of this webinar, just tell me if you agree with us, but this is reversible if we do it the right way. So we can focus, I think at this stage, there could be many reasons for this trend, but let's focus today on labor productivity and see how we can, addressing that, we can reverse this trend. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Henry. Yeah, and I think you made some really key points there. I think one, that the fact that South Africa is unique in the African context, that we're not actually growing the manufacturing sector. But I think more importantly, what are the reasons behind it, and why are we so responsive to the labor unions, or why don't we change our models? And I think we're going to address some of those things. But I think the great thing about having such a big audience that we do at the moment, there's some industry leaders, when I was looking through the guest list earlier, that actually have insights from different industries and what they're seeing in the market. So obviously there's a lot of people on this call who are just interested in the topic to see what's happening, but we've also very blessed to have a lot of those people here that have actually seen changes in the market and what actually is successful. One of the things we do want to get from you guys, just to make it a little bit more interactive, is what is the industry you're currently working in? And whether or not, are we focusing on the right areas in terms of this country? Should we be investing in other services or other industries? I wrote an interesting article the other day around how we are the 15th best country in the world in terms of potential for solar PV, and we've got another solar PV company in our group. But the focus of this economy and the government in particular is not to grow jobs in that market, which is very suspicious in terms of why aren't they looking to grow jobs? If manufacturing is not the area of growth, as Henry kind of alluded to, why are we not looking at other areas? Okay, so looking at what's happening in the industries, it seems like we've got a bit of a split between services and other as a primary market. So that's interesting. That'll play into, Nicola, your demo later. We've got two examples that we'll put into the demo, both services and factory type workers. Okay, yeah, it's getting a little bit more on the manufacturing going up again. Okay, so split between the services and other. Okay, so Henry, let's take two of your case studies that you actually turned businesses around. Let's start with this first case study. What exactly was happening in this business when you got there?
Yeah, this was a popular furniture manufacturer producing those popular furniture from those days. It was middle 90s. And when come the middle 90s, that market disappeared. They were producing, the ball and claw furniture, traditional furniture from stinkwood, yellowwood, blackwood. That market disappeared. And all the manufacturers in that area were fighting for survival. We also had labor unions trying to protect those jobs. Whether it was relevant or not, they tried to protect the jobs. That was what it's about. And that's very similar to me. Then I joined this company as an engineer to turn it around. My job was to see if I can turn it around. To me, it was very similar to the Codex, the route that we have with Codex, fax machines, travel centers. So why do you want to protect the job producing fax machines if it's irrelevant? So the challenge that was there to see, can we think outside the box and make something with this business without losing jobs? And I think the business was also, because of what happened, it was loss-making. It was in a terrible negative loss situation. So, yeah, that's just the first example. We can look at the second one as well.
So, Henry, and to quote a phrase, they couldn't see the wood for all the trees.
Exactly. See the second example was an umbrella manufacturer quite a few years later. They were producing umbrellas for home and leisure. And there was opportunities overseas, worldwide branding opportunities. So that's when you brand a parasol, you put it on a chair with a table outside. You brand it with Coke or Lipton, Duvel, Red Bull, Bollinger, Heineken, and etc. So it's very popular to brand those. It was a good seller. But the problem also was that there's very seasonal. That's a very seasonal demand. In winter, there was no demand for this. And in summertime, there was an increase in over demand for those products. So the factory had to work overtime. They spent a lot of money. They burnt money, overtime money in summer. And in winter, they were doing almost nothing. And my first year that I joined, I was part of this labor meeting with the labor unions. And they demanded 10% or 11% increase on salaries. And in the end, we settled at 7%. This was my first labor union meeting. Well, maybe I had way back, but recent years, we settled on, I think, 7%. And that was it. What they could do is they could protect their jobs, have an increase, and that's it. But the company was loss-making. It belonged to a corporate investor, then dumped the company, and then I was asked to turn it around.
So just two questions there. I mean, what was the reasons behind the 10% demand? And secondly, did the corporate investor dump it because of the labor union pressures?
They dumped it just before I got involved. I think they dumped it, and then there was a new investor that's saying I might give it a try. And I was offered, my incentive was offered shares in the company if I could turn it around. And so it was a start, very bad start, gloom. It wasn't good looking pretty. So we had to think, so that the first thing was the 7% wage settlement. So we knew that was it was a fixed salary for the year. We knew, but although it was hourly paid employees, we knew what the salary bill would be for the year. It was a fixed number. So we can
I think the important thing is, how do we turn these things around?
Yeah. So I think looking at both situations, the big thing is that you look at the businesses, they're very complex in terms of product ranges. The furniture company had about 700 items of furniture. So if you have to order a product, you place an order and you wait 6, 7, 8 months for your product to be delivered. That's a long queue. And same also with the parasol manufacturer. It was a difficult process. They had lots of products. So my first step was to make it simple. I think in a business like this, you make it simpler, make it easier to live with.
Okay.
The next thing is to implement a suitable accounting system that you can help you with measurement. The furniture company, when I joined, they were busy with an MRP system. It was in the old days, we called it MRP. It was a full manufacturing system. And they were busy for 2 years trying to implement the system. In the other case of Parasol, it was not a good system. So important thing there is to make sure you implement the system And in this case, in both cases, we installed Sage 300 or the old AWCape. You probably know the AWCape system. With that system, it was possible that you can track performance by product in terms of you want to track sales, you want to track cost of sales, you want to track margins, and from those measurements or metrics, you can make then a qualified sort of solution or get answers to various questions.
And I think, Henry, that's kind of a base, and we'll talk to it just now when we go into the performance-based remuneration systems. If you don't actually have objective as opposed to subjective measures, it's very difficult to actually then judge a person based on their performance. You actually have to have those figures to start with before you can actually judge them. Absolutely.
So it takes time. I think implementing a system probably needed about 6 months to get a system going, and then you can start measuring your product performance, departmental performance, and so on. And then it starts. Then your measurements start to measure. It's important also to understand the customer needs and the future needs. So in terms of the furniture manufacturing, important to understand that old ball and claw, that sort of era of furniture is gone, and that people don't want to wait 6-7 months for it delivered. The trend is, if you look at where we are today, this is now a few years later. I know it was the right thing because we designed knockdown furniture, patio furniture. We reduced the range of 700 items to about 12 or 15 or 20 items. And we produce them in knockdown format, so you can pack them and then you can ship them. Like in COVID days, you can make a mail order and have it delivered to your house in that sort of format. So the other thing also was important to understand that the employees are working for the customer and not for the company. My first question when I started with planning to turn the company around was to ask the employees, who do you work for? And they say, we're working for you. I say, you're not working for me. We are, and me and you, we are working for the customer. Only if we know that we're working for the customer and we focus on the customer needs, can be successful as a team. That's so important. In any company, I've done turnarounds in service industries, different types of, but it's so important to put your mind, make a mind jump and make sure that your employees understand that they are not working for the board, they are working for the customer. That made a massive difference.
Yeah, Henry, I think, that's the crux of this thing for me, and since I've embraced it with you working in the organization, is that I'm not working for you or for AWCape. I'm here to deliver a service to the customers, and if they're not willing to pay for it, I don't get paid. And it's a very simple concept that people will get. It effectively makes everyone within the organization an entrepreneur, knowing that they're focusing on the customer.
Exactly. Yeah, so and then important to make sure that all the employees are on the same page. So your planning is important to start from the top, and your CEO must drive this also. The CEO, whether it's a male or female, must drive this all the way from the top, and everybody, the management team, the employees you must share those plans with him so we are all on the same page. The problem is, if you're not on the same page, you will never get this right. So it's important to get that right first. So it's also important to change your management style to become supportive and participative. Make sure that those people, there's so much energy in the labor movement, in your labor. If you can harness that labor to be part of your thinking machine, to help come up with ideas. And that's important. It's so striking for me in those early days, turning these companies around, that you share your ideas, you share the problems with the labor teams, and they come up, they put their hands up with ideas, how to increase productivity and so on. So what happens, you then harness the energy of the full employee total people. And that makes a massive difference in the way going forward. Of course, it's important that your shareholders must be prepared to share wealth. If this doesn't happen, it's difficult to turn it around. You must be prepared to say, if we are successful from this wealth that we are going to create, we must be able to share this wealth with our workers. And that's very important. It should not be a union-induced action. It must be a will from the shareholders to say, for us to be successful, we must be able to share.
And I think, Henry, the concept there is also that there's no ceiling there, because the more money that is made, the more money that is shared across everyone. And that just creates incentive for people working those extra hours.
Exactly. So if the buffer is in place, the sky is the limit. Really, you can really grow a company from this. You can really grow it, make it successful. But when you add performance-based remuneration, the sky is reached much, much quicker.
Okay, so I think we've got quite a diverse set of people on here, and I think a lot of them, from what I could see, are in the HR space. But have you implemented a performance-based remuneration system, or are you very much in an outdated sort of mode of scales, ratings? How are you judging your employees based on their performance right now? Okay, so there's quite a lot of people saying that they have, but quite a few that haven't. So this is going to be a very interesting sort of implementation for you. And I think, the responsiveness of this and what it changes in terms of your employee engagement is dramatic. It really, really does enhance. I've been through many organizations myself, and I think, where I'm currently at, the way that these performance reviews are done it doesn't have that anguish just before it that a lot of managers and employees have just before they get judged on their performance. When it's subjective, it generally brings an emotion. When it's objective, there's either you have or you haven't done it. And the more regularly you also do those, which Henry will touch on just now, the less of an anguish it is. Normally these things happen once a year, and it's a big difference to the person's paycheck at the end of the day. Okay, so Henry, obviously we've talked a lot of theory, but I think the people on the call here are probably practical. They've got businesses to run. How do we actually implement this? How do we get there?
Yeah, the examples we used before was manufacturing, but I've done this also in services industries and others as well. It's the same thing, similar principles. I think the first thing that you need to do is you must, for each person in your business, whether it's services or manufacturing, you must define the role, define the role, and do job descriptions. So each person knows exactly what their role in the business is. To have grey areas in role definition is one of the biggest evils we have to make it difficult to turn around. So that's very important. And you must also define measurement of success. Define that, and can be done for any job. Any job can be defined. For example, in manufacturing, the management, for example, one of the definitions or criteria could be that could be the rands per output or per person. So if you have a factory of 4 people, your output of, say, in rands, or if you're producing meat, if say in the meat industry, you could also take your kilograms produced per day divided by number of people and get a kilogram per head per person as a measurement, and then have that as a measurement, and then see how we can improve on that. So any job can be measured.
So Henry, I'm going to be the naysayer here, and just to clarify what you're saying. You're saying any job, no matter how complex, you can actually put it into a yes/no measurement for the task they're performing.
Yes, okay. You must think outside the box. It's possible to measure any job, and it's important not to have it from a scale 1 to 10 to say he's a good worker, give us a rating 1 to 10. They will all vary, and the problem is in an environment, factory, or in the larger businesses, you will have your departments. If that's an option to 1 to 10, they will all differ, and some may have higher ratings than average, some are lower, and so on. So it's important to have a specific yes or a no, and not a 1 to 10.
Okay. And then I think one of the things is we talked about the measurements earlier. No target, no results. I know you focus on this a lot.
Exactly. No target, no results, and no measurement, no performance. That's absolutely what it is. And I've seen it so many times. If there's no measurement, there's no performance. So what you must do then is you structure your remuneration according to your regular performance ratings. And those ratings, you want to do it as often as possible. It works. I think it's feasible to do it in a service industry. Like in our business, we do it once a month. We have ratings. And those ratings must also be constructive. It's not just a matter of rating the employee and giving feedback. It's a matter of sharing what you've observed and asking the employee also some feedback on how can we improve on this. And if there are issues, discuss your issues and ask for what can be done to resolve or to improve. So it should be a two-way discussion, should be constructive as well. So as an example, what we've done for manufacturing is where they, instead of having an annual bonus, what you do is you can have a gain sharing system. So what you do there is you define a target for net profit, what the board feels they can achieve, that they're comfortable with. And what you then do is you say anything that we achieve more than what we have as an objective, that we share as a percentage. And in this case, of example, I've used 30%. 30% of what we gain in terms of net profit, we share with the employees. And in the case of the pedestal manufacturer, we thought that we were very, not too optimistic and say for the first year, but in the first year, the employees gained R1 million the first year we did this, and it just changed the company around.
Sure.
So the gain sharing, the 30% was about R1 million. And the next year there was no more union meetings. I'm not knocking the unions. I think what happened there is that this free market system came in, was settled in. We went into a free market environment. They performed, and the gain sharing gave them enough to make sure that it was more than the bonuses they had before. It was more than the 7% they had before. So that's a good way of doing it.
And I think, that's the important thing here is that, you talked about what was happening. There was negativity, there was loss in the business, and you came in with a strategy. You changed it to a participant management structure. You had the remuneration-based, performance-based remuneration systems put in place, and you achieved success. Do you want to talk through the success for each of those companies?
Yes, what was achieved at the furniture manufacturer? We reduced the product range, limited from 400 or 700 to about 20 items. We simplified the manufacturing. We focus on higher volumes. So interestingly enough, that you sometimes think that if you reduce number of units, you had less artisans in the factory, but in the end, we employed more people because we were successful, profitable. We could employ more people, and the turnover just grew tremendously. We broke through the export market. I think after 2 years, this flat pack or the knockdown patio furniture, we went to a show in Cologne, and our first order was for 12 40-foot containers. Now 12 40-foot containers is a lot. If you used a little factory to get that order was tremendous for us. And that just pulled the business in the direction. It became very profitable. Within about, I think, 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, we were very profitable. And of course, we got the Business Person of the Year award from the Chamber of Business. And that could be done. The umbrella manufacturer, also we simplified, we outsourced non-core functions. And we used... what we could do is we had to compete with the Chinese manufacturers who could sell a container at a much lower price than we could do it. But what we could do is we could buy umbrella frames. We outsourced those frames to a company in China. We sold them to our customer in Europe, which was Coke, for example, Coca-Cola Europe. We shipped frames to them. And we made an estimate of what they will need for the entire season. And I use them for branding, of course, Coke, Coke Light and all the various Coke brands. So we could ship those frames from China in US dollars to Europe. And then the user could tell us then on very short time scales, they could say we need now Coke or Lipton or Coke Light, we need 200 size 20, for example. So we could, back in South Africa, we could produce those customized and ship out those orders, even air freight them because it's a lightweight product. But we could deliver exactly what they needed. And that was the big difference. So because we are so tuned to the customer requirements, we made this change. And within short order periods, we could deliver exactly what they needed. And this made a massive difference. we became, from loss-making, became highly profitable. And as I said, the initial wage bargaining made way for a free market system. And the bonuses were quite large. And yeah, the company also was a runner-up for the business, the Exporter of the Year award for the Chamber of Business. So the system.
And I think you're being quite humble there, Henry. I think you've got a lot of accolades and personal ones for the turnaround you did. And I think, you know, having worked with you for many years now, you are a driving force behind this. And I think you talk to that, the supportive management structure and the willing to share in wealth. That's part of this. So it's a big decision for organization. They have to be committed to it, much like any change program. But the effectiveness is definitely there. I mean, you've given two phenomenal case studies there. But I think, you know, the changes can be small. And I think one of the things we also, although we're going to now lead into Nicola doing a demo on a really, really great platform to use it from a technology perspective, you can do this through Excel. So it really doesn't cost you very much, and it will fundamentally change how your businesses, or even if you want to start at a department level, you don't need to do this organization-wide on one thing, but you will see the differences even within your own team straight away. So thanks, Henry. Thanks for that. While we transition into the video, I've got another poll here just to see. I know from the registrations, there's over 50% of the audience is using a Sage product of some sort, but why don't you let us know what product are you using? Okay, so it looks like Sage 300 People is a very popular product, some other brand. So maybe the Nicola and Ansel, you'll be able to convince them to change. We'll see how that goes now. Nicola, I'm just going to play a video quickly before you join in. For those who are not familiar with 300 People, it's a really phenomenal system. And Nicola will give that own. But for you to understand, it's an integrated payroll and HR system on the same database. So Nicola, if you come on, why should I not use Excel for performance-based remuneration systems?
Yeah, so why do it on Excel when you can do it online? So, hi everybody, my name is Nicola Leibrandt and I am a senior HR consultant for Sage for about 5 years now. What I do is I offer expert consulting services and help implement HR systems, which leads to business profitability as well as simplification. Some of my beloved clients include Cape Grace Hotel, Cape Nature, Sunslots, More Sports, Hisense, PEP, WWF, and so many more. So I previously come from an HR BP background. So I've worked for Unilever and MTN previously. Therefore, I can provide added value in the sense, not just in the operational sense, but also in the HR management perspective as well. And my role as a consultant today will be just to work with you and guide you to tailor make a performance-based remuneration system that suits your organizational need. Okay, I'm going to quickly run through some of the benefits with you. Then I'm going to hand over to Jeff to discuss some examples, and then I'm going to do the demonstration for you. Okay, So what is the main thing about Sage 300 People? It's a powerful, not only HR, but payroll, as well as self-services system. Okay, it increases your organization's productivity and also drives growth. Okay, so one aspect of it would be the payroll aspect. Okay, no matter how big or complex your business is, payroll can still be business compliant. And then on the HR perspective, you've got powerful insights into your employees. And this can help you guide and make more informed decisions about your business. Then the third aspect is your employee self-service. So self-service enables employees to log on and they feel part of the process because they can log in and take charge of their employee files. All right, so what are some of the benefits when it comes to performance management? The main one for me is the employee empowerment, because employees, as I mentioned, can take charge of their own performance reviews and they also feel a part of the process. So previously, performance reviews have been an HR-based or HR-centered kind of system, but here we try to push the ball back into the employees' court and managers' court, because those are the two parties that spend a lot of time together and actually work on these key performance areas that you measure. All right, the second aspect is the improved employee morale as well as motivation. And then you also get excellent tracking and record keeping. So you can go back history, you can archive your documents, and you can always refer to them if need be online without having to file, and you're saving paper, which is great for the environment. Okay, and then another great benefit is the excellent reporting at the click of a button. And then you have accurate rating scores, so no more manual calculations, which is wonderful. And lastly, you've got access to real-time information. So if I'm sitting in Cape Town, my client's sitting in Durban, and his manager's sitting in Dubai, we can all access the same information simultaneously in real time.
Thanks, Nick. Look, I think you should be in sales. I've said this to you before, and I'm sure Ansel's very proud of you, what you're saying, but I've also seen the practical implementation of this. And I think, you know, just being aware of everyone's time here, we probably have to speed through this a little bit. So what we've done is we've created a couple of examples for Nicola to show you, just to show, much like I challenged Henry earlier, that we can actually change any of the performance ratings to a yes and no answer to make it objective and not subjective. So we'll go through with Nicola how she's configured this on the system. But this is a bookkeeper, and the different KPIs effectively that would be measured on that bookkeeper on a regular event. And it's a yes or no. It's not were you good at it? It's did you do it? Yes or no. So there's the kind of bookkeeper checklist. And then for a factory worker, just to show that the diversity, because there's a lot of people that are not necessarily just in services industry. We've also got one in the factory workers, and you can see that there's certain performance standards. Obviously, you know, it would vary per factory which standard would actually be applicable for the quality of work, but there's always a specific standard. The same thing is everything else is very objective. You know, does he meet the standard? What is the standard? Do you have 20 items being produced, or is it 30 items packed? What is that rate, and does it beat it? There's no discrepancy of, well, he tried his best, or, you know, he did it in difficult circumstances. It becomes very subjective. All right, Nicola, so over to you. I think it's time to showcase a little bit of this on the system. So you share your screen and go ahead.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Give me 1 second. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to demonstrate an example using a bookkeeper position. Okay, so I'm going to play the role of a line manager, an employee, and then I'm also going to show you an HR aspect as well. Okay, so just remember, this is a high-level overview of how a performance review could be done and how you can use it to monitor your employees' performance. Okay, I'm going to sign in. This is the self-service interface that we spoke about. So I'm going to sign in as Willem and click on the sign in and sign into my self-service. All right, remember the aim is to keep it objective as possible, so simple yes and no answer. Okay, so I'm a line manager. I've signed in immediately in my inbox. I see that there is almost like a LinkedIn message. So if I click on Performance Review 1, it immediately takes me to my inbox. Under my performance items are the reviews. So this is my subordinate, Tanya Skosana, performance review for 2021, and she's a bookkeeper. So if I click on this line item, it then opens up my performance contract. I can immediately see there are 5 KPAs or success measures for this bookkeeper position. All right. Let's look at them. The first KPA reads, all transactions posted within 1 week from month end. Oh yes, another great feature that I wanted to show you, ladies and gentlemen. So if I read all transactions posted within 1 week from month end, I'm then able as a line manager to go down, click on show employee rating, and then I can see what my employees rated themselves. So Tanya said yes. She said actual result, all transactions posted with on time, and she commented on the review to say always plan in advance. Okay, so based on this, a lot of my clients have a lot of subordinates, so it just makes it a lot easier if you're able to get visibility on what they've rated as well as why. So based on that, I can make a more informed decision and provide a rating as well as pop in a comment. So I'm going to put in a comment. Let's look at the second KPA for the bookkeeper. It reads all transactions posted were accurate. Again, I'll look at what my employees rated. She said yes, no errors received, and she commented double checking sign-off measures are in place. Okay, wonderful. Based on that, I can then provide a rating as well as put in a little comment. That's a good work. Okay, let's look at the third KPA. It says clearing accounts all 0 within 1 week from month end. Employee rated yes. She said accounts cleared on time. Okay, you're just repeating the process quite simply until you complete all the KPAs. Simple yes and no answer. The fourth KPA reads financial dashboards contain information not older than 1 week. Okay, employees put in their yes, updated every 4th day. Okay, so here I can then also rate and fill in a comment. One of the lovely features I mentioned was the attachment functionality. So here I can see my employees attached evidence. So you can go ahead and attach per KPA line any supporting evidence by using the attach button. It then goes into your PC web browser and you can pick up any document. Okay, this one's already loaded. So if I open it up, I'll show you what it looks like. Just as an example, you can attach evidence. All right. The last KPA or success measure for our bookkeeper is all financial reports distributed within 1 week from month end. Let's have a look at what employee said no. She said, apologies, it completely slipped my mind this month. I will have it sent to you, close of business today. The latest. Okay, now I can then still rate and then put in any comment that I wish to put in. Right. Now that I've completed my performance contract,
I think Nicola, that the comments and the interactions I think is so important now. We're working from home, people working all over the place, and it's logged within the system. It's not an email that you have to go and find reasons. It's all central and one place. And I think also just from although we're talking yes and no answer, it could be zeros and ones because that's obviously what we're trying to do here, that it's binary. But you can actually change this whole form to be what you would like. We're just obviously showcasing the functionality as we think it should be designed.
100%. Yes, you can do annual reviews, monthly, daily, ad hoc. This is just an example of what it could look like. You can put in an overall comment as a manager for your input. And you can go ahead and save the comment. And now I'm going to submit my review. Okay, the moment you submit, it's moved out of your inbox because there's no action pending. So that it was as simple as 1 to 5, yes or no. Now I'm going to quickly sign out as a line manager, sign back in as an employee, and I want to show you the results aspect. So I'm going to sign in now as Tanya as co-signer, sign into my self-service. Okay, immediately I've also got a little message in my inbox. Okay, if I click on my inbox and I go to review results under my performance items, I can see there is a review. So if I click on I to view, I'll quickly show you. If I click on view, I can view all my KPAs as well as the weighting. I can see what my line manager has rated, as well as what I have rated. So my manager's weighting actually counts for 100% in this example. Right at the end, it's really nice because you can click on the comments box and see what was said by the reviewers for the entire line. Okay, for example, the manager or the employee said all transactions posted 9 days before month end. Then she also said always plan 2 days in advance. And then the manager commented received on time, thank you. So this is great for tracking and just for reference purposes. Another functionality is the attachment. So I can click on the attachment and really open up from anywhere. And there we go. You've got access to the document in real time from any location. All right. What is of most of importance for employees at this point would be the performance review results. So I can see, okay, Tanya's got 0.8 out of 1, which is 80% out of 100, which is excellent performance. I can also go see the overall comments from both reviewers. And then at the bottom, I can go and view what was my strengths for this review cycle, as well as any summary of focus areas for the next cycle.
This is the development goals effective for that individual. So you still have that personal side. And I think, I know you're rushing through this demo, Nicola, and I am aware of time. We've only got 10 minutes left. But I think, what you've showcased here, and as quick as you've done that, both the employee and the manager, you've effectively done a performance review in 5 minutes. And I know most of these sessions, generally, if you've got rating scales and subjectivity and chat, they would be first, they'd have an hour discussion around it just to kind of get the same points if someone didn't walk out the room in a huff around the emotion. And then secondly, they'd have the follow-up meeting, probably arbitrated by HR. Whereas this is completely objective, it can be done very quickly, and the results is going to probably be what the end result would be for other performance reviews as well. Okay, yes. So and I don't know how much more you've got to show, Nicola, but I obviously want to jump into the panel discussion. I can see this chat popping up since we've started demonstrating this. So I'd like to get the audience involvement as well. Do you want to showcase anything else there?
One last thing I just want to show you. Yeah, so the employee at this stage would acknowledge and agree. And then one last thing I want to show you just very quickly is the HR side. So if I sign in onto the HR side, ladies and gentlemen, onto people online, so this is great for overall reporting purposes. So there's a review section where you can go ahead and view. There's a little export to Excel button where you can export the detail of the entire company. I've already exported it. It looks like this. Okay, so you can see your employees, your bookkeepers. You can view the status of the review. So who's still busy, who's still in progress, and you can actually get an overview of who are the top performers, so above average versus your employees that are below average. That's just for analysis and decision.
The HR person, a hero, basically.
Thank you so much for your time.
Excellent, thank you, Nicola. I know it was a bit rushed, and we're happy to do demos, obviously, for anyone on the call at a later stage to go in a lot more detail with the product itself. But I'm just very well aware that there's a lot of people asking questions in the background, and I'd like to bring on our panel, particularly Ansel and Henry, back to answer some of the specific questions that are coming through, and I will filter those through as we're going. It started quite a while back. But while I'm doing that, Ansel, just one of the things that a lot of people want to ask is, what's the difference between performance management versus performance evaluation?
Thanks. So with regard to, hi everyone, Ansel Dry, National Sales Manager for Sage. So with regard to your performance evaluation, it's generally the old way of doing performance management that we considered performance management. And that's really around the fact that, performance management historically has always been driven from an HR perspective. So HR would go and stipulate, these are the requirements for the position, and you'd be measured according to what HR has stipulated with regard to those particular requirements. But it wasn't really performance management as such. Reason being why I say that is that we need to always ask ourselves the question, what is the main reasoning behind us managing performance? And this is a very, very critical question to your business as to what are we trying to achieve? Are we just trying to make sure that we've done something that we can hand to business so that we can justify a particular increase, or are we trying to do something differently? So what the majority of business is doing is they're looking at what true performance management actually is. And Nicola has touched on that a little bit as well with regard to the managing of a particular employee, because ideally, if we move an employee that's probably average right now to someone who's excellent, inevitably it affects your business in a positive way, which means that we're getting more out of the employee. And if we're getting more out of the employee, ideally it benefits the business in a very positive way. And in many cases, it becomes, especially those who are in revenue generating positions, it affects the business in a great and positive way. So performance management then becomes critical to your business, because the more we get out of an employee, the better it is for the business at the end of the day. So what we're wanting to do is to make sure that the employee is managed in a certain way with the tools that are available to you, whether it be Excel, whether it be other applications, that we actually manage the employee to get them from A to point to B, which is better for the employee as well as the business at the end of the day.
Okay, and Ansel, I think just taking one step further than that, obviously you talk about employment development, which is important, but I think, Henry, one of the things is a lot of people listening into this is, where do they start as an organization? For a small business is probably easier, but what would be your first 3 steps to tackle this if you were a company owner or CEO or HR manager?
The first question is, it small or large? I think it's equally as much work or as easy to do it for a big as well as for a small organization. With the bigger organizations, the impact is just so much bigger. You can see it, like the growth, the benefits is so much easier. Or so much bigger with a big organization. And where do you start? I think it's a shared idea with your employees. Is first of all to start with the customer centric, and say, to get what we want, give the customer what they need, is let's work backwards to our jobs. So it's about sharing the whole thing with your staff. Make it an open discussion and discuss what we're going to do to move forward to build this business.
Okay, and then there's 2 questions come in, and I know we're kind of going off piece there, but I think it's important to get some of these questions addressed. One of the questions from Michelle's around employment equity, equal play, equal work, and I mean that's been a big topic globally around gender parity expected in terms of the pay. And so how would you implement this so that there's a fairness there?
Good questions. There's also a question of how do you also make sure that the rating follows a normal curve. I think what we do normally with this is there should be 2 components to the remuneration. The first is a basic salary or a guaranteed minimum, and then a performance component. And what will happen is if the basic is larger, the performance becomes smaller, typically, mathematically. So what you want to do is make sure it's not that your basic is an average and medium, but make the opportunity for the performance component of the remuneration without any limit. So it must have those 2 components. And it doesn't matter what you call it, but it must have the 2 components, and then there's no limit to what
I can also concur with that, that for employment equity purposes, the base is obviously your basic salary, and that kind of generally aligns to the equal work, equal pay. But when it comes to the performance side of things, it can be individual performances, and when you really get remunerated based on company performances, that's also the trend as well. Where the company does well, there's a vested interest from employees as well that if the part of the remuneration is based on how well the company actually does, it is a great incentive, and that's where you get buy-in from the employees. So it's not that they just clock in as an employee, but there's a great incentive for them to actually overperform, because if they overperform, the business does better. If the business does better, they get better remuneration.
Yeah, typical.
That's the normal curve that you talk there, Henry. And then the second question that came through, there's no distribution based on like these are the better performers versus the worst performers. It's all tied into the results of the company. So if I perform well, I will share in a bigger percentage because my rating is higher. If I don't perform well, then I get lesser per percentage. But it's not based on there's 5 individuals in a team and I have to now move these individuals around that team. So I have a high performer and a low performer. You can have 5 top performers if they all perform and shoot the lights out. You could have 5 low performers if they all don't shoot the lights out. So there is no normal curve per se. It really is around performance of the individual.
The problem is if you do ratings and it's on subjective scale of 1 to 10. I've had this in the past, in my earlier days, and I see a lot of the audit companies who's doing ratings battle with this concept as well. So if your ratings is not objective, a yes or a no or a numbers, then you have to look at departments and look at the normal distribution, make sure, because some of them will be higher and some will be lower. Difficult to manage it. That's why you have to go for totally objective, a yes or a no or numbers. And then you remove the requirement for having a normal distribution, because it must also be checked as well by somebody to make sure that those yes or no's are also true. That's what you need to do.
And then Nicola, just to bring you in here, there's 2 questions for you. One, when it comes to implementation, what sort of time frame are you looking at for performance management? That's a quick off the top of your head.
Okay, yeah, so it's very hard to say. It depends on the company's specific requirements. A very basic setup could take a day or 2, whereas with my larger clients, you're looking at 35,000 employees, that could take a month. So it really depends on the specifications of it.
Okay, and then for are the cycles and templates for the contracts fixed or customizable?
Yes, so that's a very good question. The templates are 100% customizable. We can tailor it to suit exactly what you want. And yes, you can reuse it the next year or adjust it. It's really easy to use.
Jeff, if I may just answer another question. I also see it's also about the timing. So there are two aspects to a project like this. One is the soft skills. The other one is the system skills. So there is an area where you have to design a system, look at your typical environment, design a system, and then the system. Now you run the system on a Sage 300 payroll system, for example, on your HR system. So we offer both those services. We offer the soft skills, the consulting component, where we advise on what system to adopt and the structure of the system. And then, of course, Nicola will then assist to make sure that we can host this on the payroll system. We offer both of those sides.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's an important part of it. I mean, the change management side, and we do support that. But if there's no buy-in from the business, it's just not going to be successful. And I think that's an important key. And I think, Henry, one question for you is, if you do get the ratings now, how do you actually convert this or apply this to a pay bracket?
Yeah, interesting. If I can take an example of the factory again, where there was a gain sharing. So what you do is you create a certain amount that has been shared, the gain shared. So it could be R1 million, for example, in a large factory or a large organization. Now your ratings from individuals, right? Because it's got 2 components. It's got a fixed or a basic component, and then the rating component. You would then distribute those. It'll be a pie. And you slice up the pie according to the ratings of all the people. So that's a mathematical. You can do it easily on a spreadsheet and distribute those according to individual ratings, according to pie scales and to ratings. And you share the pie. You've defined the pie first. What is the pie? It's R1 million, and then you share that according to the ratings of individuals.
Okay, and then Ansel, one of the questions for you is, obviously we talked about the individual and the growth and stuff, but I mean, you're seeing this across a lot of the businesses and people getting rid of performance management as in its entirety. I mean, people also saying we don't need you to come back to the office. There's a lot of change in terms of employee habits. What would you say is the trend for conducting performance, particularly in this environment of work from home and no visibility in the office?
Yes, there's obviously been a lot of change thanks to COVID, but obviously from working from home, we tend to people have ended up being a little bit more productive. Working from home, we're not chatting to our friends anymore. We actually, so the trend in the market is obviously to have a look at where firstly we redefine how we actually do business. That is absolutely critical because of the fact that we are now working from home. So there's certain things, there's certain systems that companies have put in play to see, how active people are on the job, with various back office systems that can be brought in, and that can be measured according to that, whether it be telephony systems, whether it be the use of the products that you have available to you, and the employees are then, measured according to that. So one of the points that were mentioned within the performance review that Nicola went through, you can have those points in there, the time that you've worked on, saying the way you get information back to a client, whether you're working in credit control or whether you're working, in the front office, for example, etc. Because I can be in reception right now, the virtual reception, from home, because all calls are coming through. That's all I'm dealing with is actual calls. So there's certain measurements that you actually have to reinvent because you may have, many may be working from home now, and that's generally your first starting point is having a look at the job profiling for every job that you have within your business. Start as your starting point, because I can't obviously define what the different jobs are within your business. You have to define what that is and what the metrics are. And once you have that as your starting point, you can then, brace out to the different systems that you have available to you.
Yeah, and I think, that alludes to the soft skills that Henry talked about. And, from a consulting experience perspective, we can definitely assist from AWCape. And we've also got a number of colleagues in the industry and a few of you which are on the call that can assist with that and guide, the HR staff through it, because it's an overwhelming task to kind of redefine all the job profiles across your entire organization to fit into this new world. And once that first step is in, actually the performance rating becomes a lot easier. So yeah, I agree with you, Ansel. And I think, we're 3 minutes over the time, so I think we've got through all the questions. If not, we'll continue the chat on Teams. This will be available afterwards. The recording will also be posted here and published on the AWCape website. But I think, the key principle here is AWCape Group of Companies fundamentally believes in this, and we also believe that this is the way that we can change businesses within this country to be successful. And if businesses are successful in this country, particularly small businesses that employ 2/3 of all people globally, we will have a successful country again, and we are committed to that. We're a proudly South African company, and as well as our level 2 BE empowerment company, Applica, we really do want to drive this country forward. I'd like to thank all the people in the audience that have given up their time this morning. I hope you found it informative. Seems like from the comments that people have got some value out of this. And again, to our guests, thank you, Ansel and Nicola and Henry. Thank you for your time and insights. And yeah, drop us a line. You've got a couple of email addresses to contact, and we'll be in contact soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers,
Cheers.